Well, we're here with Pastor Bob Dunlop. Pastor Dunlop, when did you come to Grace, and what was kind of the story behind that?
Well, the story behind that is I was out in Brandon, Manitoba.
Oh, wow.
And pastoring a little church out there, or a church that was just being started, actually. And I was their first pastor, and things were going quite well. I'd been there about 4 years. And I came down to on vacation. I was not feeling well at all, and they had asked me to speak at Grace. The pastor had gone. And I said to my wife, maybe we shouldn't go. She said, well, let's go over. We can get a motel, and we'll have a little vacation while we're there, and you can speak Sunday and so on. So we did that with no idea of candidating. But they asked if I would let my name stand, which
Yes.
I did, and they gave me a call.
Yeah.
And I'd only been out at Brandon for 4 years, so I really didn't want to come, basically. But I didn't want to go out there in the first place. So, but the Lord was leading, and anyway, we accepted the call and came there to pastor.
And that
1981.
1981, yes.
Yeah, right at the beginning of the year.
Right.
Worst time to move. Went there in January.
Oof.
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty chilly.
Yeah.
Now, Pastor Dunlop, you mentioned to me this past summer, the school started in 1980, so you were there just almost at the beginning.
When I was interviewed, and they interviewed me, and I said, look, I don't have any expertise with Christian schools.
Yeah,
So therefore, I can't do anything there for you.
yeah.
So they said, well, we have a board, and everything will be taken care of by the board. I discovered that was not the truth. They didn't lie to me, but it was close.
Right.
It was close. But anyway, I did more trying to keep things on the level at the school than any other place, I guess. But the Lord was good to us,
Yes.
and the school was started, and things went fairly well at the very beginning.
Yes.
They didn't have the facilities that you have now, and in fact, they built a building right after I left there.
Okay.
That building that was built on for classrooms and so
Yes.
on. But before, it was just in the church. And it went quite well, but very small, of course,
Yes.
at that time.
Yeah.
But things developed a bit, and it's developed to what it is now, and it's great.
Praise the Lord. Now, how long were you at Grace then?
I was there for about 6 years.
6 years.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Any sort of favorite memories from your time there? People that come to mind, or?
Oh, a lot of people could come to my mind. Some good and some bad. No,
That's
not
fair.
really.
That's
No,
always the
we
case.
had a good ministry there, and,
Yes.
and the Lord was good to us. We saw some growth. We saw some people get saved and be discipled and go on with the Lord, and that was good to see. Alec Rockwell, of course, as you know, he was the first pastor
Yes.
there,
Yeah.
and I knew him really well.
Yes.
And I'd been there to speak numbers of times. When he would have something special, he would want me to come and
Okay.
speak at it, which I
Yes.
did.
Yes.
I have good memories of Grace. We had good help. Ken came the last little bit I was there,
Yes.
and that was great. I didn't have anyone before that time
Right. Right.
to help me,
Yes.
but he was, I think you probably know, I think he's the best. He was a great help to me. He was just learning. I could see that he had gifts
Yes.
that he could use for the Lord, and
Yeah.
and he started preaching some and teaching some, and we developed that way. And then when I went from there to Parkside, let me just say a little bit about
Yeah.
Parkside,
Yes.
because I'd been at Parkside for 7 years prior to going out west.
Good man. Oh, okay.
And the church at Parkside was going so well at that
Yes,
time, and
yes.
they called me out west, and I reluctantly went.
Right.
But the Lord blessed out there. We saw good things happen, and the
Yes.
church now is it's growing. I was out there last summer, and it's full.
Nice.
It was just great to see what happened there.
praise
But
the
the Lord led me out there reluctantly, and led me away from there
Yes.
reluctantly.
Yes.
And the Lord was good to us when we were at Grace. I loved those people.
Yes.
They were good to work with.
Yes.
No, in any church, you're going to have some times when there are struggles, and sometimes we agree and sometimes we disagree. That's as natural as we are human.
Yes.
But for the most part, we had great time at Grace Baptist, and they didn't want me to leave, and I didn't want to leave. But I had a love for Parkside Baptist Church, and they had a vote to have me come back, and it was just one vote against. I looked for him all the while I was there, but not really, not really. But it was a struggle to deal with. But the Lord led us away from Grace, and they had a nice time for us, and they loved Margie, my wife, better than they loved me, I think. she was great, Margie, and
Yes.
One of the hard things there was when the Kaisiks had an accident at Christmas time.
Yes.
And she was killed in the car accident.
Yes.
That was devastating to the church.
Yes.
She was the organist at the church, and she and Margie just worked together so well. And he was all beat up, and they thought he was going to die too. He didn't. He survived, but that was the saddest time for our church while I was there.
Yes.
I remember coming back after going to see them at Woodstock. She was in a hospital in Woodstock, and he had been taken to Fredericton. And when I went in to see her, I knew she wasn't going to last. I knew she was going to be gone.
Yeah.
Had prayer with her, and when I had prayer with her, the tears were running down her face. She couldn't talk to me. She never said anything, but she heard me. I knew she heard me.
Yeah.
But she died that night. And the next day we went in to tell him that she had passed away. And it was hard for him because he was just struggling between life and death too. But it was a tough time. That was probably the toughest time that I had there. When I came back, we came back from going over to see them, and the church had a film that night, so we got there just at the end of that service, and I told them I wanted to say something concerning them. And I got up to speak to them, and you'd have to know me to know that I can be very emotional. I started to talk to them about it, and then I broke down and cried.
Yes.
One of the men came to me after. He said, "Thank you for letting us cry."
Yeah.
You know, we needed to cry.
Yes.
The whole church was just devastated by what took place. But the Lord undertook for us there. We had good times there, really good times. I don't have anything negative to say about the church, and I wouldn't anyway here, but not really. I say that honestly. We had good men on the boards, and sometimes agreed and disagreed as you do as men. That's the natural thing that you face in the church.
Yes.
But the Lord was so good to us there, and bless
That's
him.
great.
Yeah.
So just lastly then,